Read it, Bryce. Every single word. This is your email.
Elena, wait, I can explain.
Oh my God, is this real?
My name is Elena Monroe. They once called me a traitor, an unfit mother, until the truth exploded and dragged an entire dynasty to its knees. I lost everything the night they set their trap. My newborn daughter, my home, my dignity. I walked away into a snowstorm with a baby in my arms and $300 in my pocket. I thought that was the end. But in reality, it was only the beginning of a battle to reclaim my freedom, my justice, and the life I thought was gone forever. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happened next.
Before I share my entire story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, especially if you've ever had to fight for your family.
The snow was falling sideways that night, whipping against the hospital windows like tiny fists demanding entry. I held my daughter for the first time as the storm raged outside, her perfect fingers wrapped around mine, her eyes, still that newborn blue, searching my face as if memorizing it. Isla Monroe, 7 pounds of pure possibility. Where is he? The nurse asked gently, checking my vitals for the 3rd time in an hour. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because explaining that my husband was probably at his country club, drowning his disappointment in aged whiskey, seemed too pathetic to voice aloud. Bryce had wanted a son, a Holloway heir. The ultrasound revealing a daughter had dimmed something in his eyes that never quite returned. He arrived 3 hours after Isla's birth, bourbon on his breath and his mother's perfume on his collar. Viola Holloway swept in behind him like a cold front, her Chanel suit pristine despite the weather. "Well," she said, peering at Isla with the same expression she might reserve for spoiled milk. "I suppose we'll make do." Make do. As if my daughter was a consolation prize. The next months blurred together. Sleepless nights, Bryce's increasing absence, Viola's visits that felt more like inspections. I was drowning, but I told myself this was normal. All new mothers felt overwhelmed. All marriages strained under a new baby. Then came the night that shattered everything. Bryce called me to his study, his father's old sanctuary of leather-bound books and crystal decanters. On his mahogany desk lay a white dress shirt, lipstick smeared across the collar like a wound. Beside it, printed emails, supposedly from my work account, arranging meetings with someone named Marcus. "Explain this," he said, his voice deadly calm. My hands shook as I picked up the shirt. Wrong size, wrong brand. The lipstick wasn't even a shade I owned. "Bryce, this isn't—" "The IT department at your old firm was very helpful." He slid the emails toward me. "They traced these right back to your computer?" But I'd been on maternity leave. I hadn't even logged into my work email in months. The timestamps showed messages sent while I was in labor, for God's sake. "You're not taking my daughter." His words hit like physical blows. "Sign this, pack your things, and get out, or I'll make sure you never see her again." The papers blurred through my tears. Non-disclosure agreements, custody waivers, my signature bleeding across lines I couldn't read properly. Viola stood in the doorway, watching with satisfaction as her son destroyed me. "You have 1 hour," Bryce said. "Don't make me call security." I stumbled to the nursery, my body moving on autopilot. Isla slept peacefully, unaware her world was imploding. I packed what I could carry: diapers, formula, her favorite stuffed rabbit. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. As I lifted her from the crib, I noticed Bryce's medical file on the changing table, left there after his insurance forms. One line jumped out: oligospermia, severe. Low sperm count, severe. The realization hit like ice water. This wasn't about infidelity. This had never been about infidelity. They wanted us gone. The Greyhound bus smelled like desperation and cheap coffee. Isla fussed against my chest as we pulled away from Denver, the skyline disappearing into a haze of snow and exhaust fumes. I had $847 in my wallet, a diaper bag, and a baby who didn't understand why her nursery had been replaced with a bus seat. "Where you headed, honey?" The woman across the aisle had kind eyes and a smoker's rasp. "West," I said, because saying nowhere felt too honest. We ended up in Maple Hollow, Oregon, a town so small it felt like hiding in plain sight. The Tall Pines Lodge had a handwritten help wanted sign that felt like Providence. The owner, Ruth, took one look at Isla and offered me a room in exchange for cleaning and front desk shifts. Been there myself, she said simply. Different story, same ending. The room was small. A bed, a dresser, a microwave on top of a mini fridge. But it was ours. I lined the bottom drawer with blankets for Isla, creating a makeshift crib. She adapted faster than I did, babbling happily at the water stains on the ceiling while I stared at them, seeing accusatory faces. Days bled into each other. Morning shift at the lodge, afternoon washing dishes at Tony's Pizza, nights hunched over my laptop, writing product descriptions for $20 a pop while Isla slept. Premium quality leather, perfect for the discerning professional. I could write those lies in my sleep. Maybe because I'd lived one. Sleep became a foreign concept. Not just from Isla's needs, but from the paranoia. Every car that slowed outside made my heart race. Every man in a suit could be a lawyer, a process server, someone coming to take her. My phone, a cheap prepaid I'd bought at a truck stop, buzzed one night with a text from an unknown number. They think you're gone for good. Don't prove them right. I deleted it immediately, but the words haunted me. Who knew where I was? Who was watching? The breakdown came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Isla had been crying for 2 hours. Teething, probably. Or maybe she sensed my fraying edges. I found myself on the bathroom floor, her in my arms, both of us sobbing. "I'm sorry," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry I can't give you better." But she just grabbed my face with her chubby hands and gave me a gummy smile, like I was her whole world, because I was. Just like she was mine. Ruth found us there in the morning. Without a word, she took Isla, made me shower, forced toast and coffee into my hands. "You're stronger than you think," she said, "but even steel bends sometimes. Doesn't mean it's broken." The coffee shop shift started like any other. Burned espresso, entitled customers, tips that barely covered gas. I was wiping down the counter when a voice froze me mid-motion. "Elena?" I turned, and there stood Gavin Prescott. 6 years older, but somehow exactly the same. That crooked smile, programmer's slouch, eyes that saw too much. My college boyfriend. The one who'd proposed under the stars at Crater Lake. The one I'd turned down because he was too safe, too genuine, too unlike the ambitious sharks I thought I needed to swim with. "My God, it is you." He stepped closer, and I watched his expression shift from joy to concern as he took in my stained apron, the exhaustion etched in my face. "Elena, what? Can I get you something?" I kept my voice professional, praying my manager wasn't watching. "Coffee, black, and..." He glanced around, then leaned in. "And 5 minutes when you get off shift, please." I shouldn't have agreed, but Gavin had this way of making me feel like myself again, even when I'd forgotten who that was. We met at the park across the street. Isla in her secondhand stroller, me in my coffee-stained uniform, him in what was clearly expensive tech casual. The contrast hurt. "Tell me," he said simply. So I did. The whole ugly story spilled out while Isla played with her toes, and Gavin's face grew darker with each detail. "The emails were spoofed," he said when I finished. "Elementary hack job. And those legal documents. Elena, did you have a lawyer look at them?" I laughed bitterly. "With what money? I mean now. Because what they did, it's not just wrong, it's illegal." He still worked in tech, he explained. Still lived in Seattle. Still believed in justice in that pure way that had made me feel both protected and patronized in college. "Let me help," he said. "I don't need..." "Yes, you do." His voice gentled. "And that's okay. Elena, I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to be your friend. The way you didn't let me be before." That stung because it was true. I'd pushed away his steadiness, his loyalty, thinking I needed someone more exciting, more dangerous. Look where that got me. He started visiting every few weeks. Casual at first. Coffee, walks with Isla, normal things that felt extraordinary after months of isolation. But I noticed him taking photos of my legal documents with his phone, asking specific questions about Bryce's business dealings, making notes in that careful way he had. "What are you doing?" I asked one afternoon as he typed furiously on his laptop while Isla napped. Remember when you used to call me your white hat hacker? He turned the screen toward me. Well, gray hat might be more accurate now. Your ex-husband's family? They're not as clean as they pretend to be. The screen showed financial records, shell companies, charity organizations with suspiciously low charitable output. Gavin, if they find out they won't. He closed the laptop. I'm careful, and you deserve the truth. More importantly, Isla deserves a mother who isn't running scared. That night, after he left, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for the first time in months. Really looked. The woman staring back was thinner, harder, with lines that hadn't been there before. But she was still standing. Maybe that counted for something. The investigation started with crumbs and built into a feast of corruption. Gavin worked his digital magic while I dug into the human element. It turned out Maple Hollow was full of women with stories. Women who'd been discarded, disbelieved, dismantled by men with money and power. You're that girl from Denver, Melody said when I tracked her down at the farmer's market. She'd been the Holloway's housekeeper for 6 years before being fired. I wondered when you'd show up. She invited me for tea, Isla on my hip, and pulled out a box of photocopies. Started keeping records when I realized what they were doing, she said. The charity, it's all smoke. They funnel donations through it, buy properties, flip them, keep the profits. Classic money laundering, but dressed up pretty. Why didn't you report it? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Honey, I tried. You know what happened? I got evicted. My credit got mysteriously ruined. My son lost his scholarship to Denver Prep. She touched Isla's cheek gently. They don't just win, they salt the earth. But we kept building our case. Gavin created an anonymous blog, Mountain Shadow Truths, where documents appeared like clockwork. Financial records, email chains, photos of Viola at ribbon cuttings for homeless shelters that existed only on paper. I wanted to feel victorious, but mostly I felt tired. Bone deep, soul tired. Every small victory came with the knowledge that I was poking a bear, a rich, vindictive bear with lawyers. You need to be careful, Ruth warned me one night. She'd become Isla's unofficial grandmother, watching her during my shifts. People like that, they don't lose gracefully. I knew she was right. But then I'd look at Isla, walking now, saying mama and cookie with equal enthusiasm, and I'd feel that mama bear rage all over again. They'd tried to steal her from me. They'd nearly succeeded. The blog gained traction. Local reporters started sniffing around. The Holloway's perfect facade developed cracks. Then Gavin found the smoking gun. Look at this, he said, laptop open on my tiny kitchen table. Viola's Mothers in Need Foundation, they've been collecting adoption fees for babies that don't exist. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? They take donations from desperate couples wanting to adopt, promise them matches with young mothers. The mothers are fictional. The babies never existed. They keep the money, claim the adoptions fell through. That's evil. That's prosecutable. His eyes met mine. Elena, this is it. This is what takes them down. But even as hope bloomed, fear wrapped around it like a vine. The Holloways had destroyed lives for less than this. What would they do when cornered? We were about to find out. The fever started on a Wednesday. By Thursday, Isla's breathing sounded like a rusty gate. By Friday, we were in the ER. Pneumonia, the doctor said. Both lungs. She needs to be admitted immediately. The words that followed hit harder than any diagnosis. I'll need insurance information and a deposit. I don't have insurance. The words tasted like failure. The administrator's expression shifted, sympathy mixed with policy. The minimum deposit for uninsured patients is $15,000. $15,000 might as well have been $15 million. I had maybe 300 in my account. The room spun. The room? Please, I heard myself beg. She's 2 years old. Please. I'm sorry. Without payment arrangements, we can only provide stabilizing care. Stabilizing. Not curing, not healing, just keeping her alive enough to transfer somewhere else. Somewhere cheaper. Somewhere she might die. I stumbled into the hallway, phone in hand, pride evaporating. Who could I call? My parents were gone. My friends had faded when I'd married up and out of my social circle. There was only What's wrong? Gavin answered on the first ring. Isla's sick, really sick, and The sob broke free. I can't pay for treatment. They won't help her properly without money I don't have. Which hospital? St. Mary's, but I'll be there in 3 hours. He made it in 2.5. I was sitting beside Isla's bed in the pediatric ward. They'd admitted her after a mysterious processing error with the billing system. She looked so small among the machines, her chest working too hard for each breath. The Prescott Foundation has covered all expenses, a nurse informed me cheerfully. You're very lucky to qualify for their emergency medical grant. I looked at Gavin, who was studiously examining a children's mural on the wall. The Prescott Foundation? Established yesterday, he said quietly. Amazing how fast paperwork moves when you know the right people. Gavin, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because this isn't about us, or pride, or any of that bullshit. It's about her. He nodded toward Isla. Let me do this, please. I collapsed against him then, all my walls crumbling at once. He held me while I sobbed, for Isla, for myself, for the simple kindness of someone giving a damn. It was the nurse who changed everything. She was adjusting Isla's IV when she frowned at the chart. That's odd, she muttered. What? I was instantly alert. Oh, nothing serious, just the blood type. The father's listed as B positive, but that's impossible with her type and yours. Must be a clerical error. The ground shifted beneath me. What's her blood type? AB negative. Pretty rare. She'd need at least one parent with AB. She smiled. Don't worry, it doesn't affect treatment. I'll just make a note to correct the records. But I wasn't worried about records. I was remembering Bryce's medical file. His blood type, B positive. Mine, a positive. Biologically impossible. Gavin caught my expression. What is it? She's not his, I whispered. Isla isn't Bryce's daughter. The implications crashed over me like a wave. The fertility treatments 3 years ago. The clinic Viola had recommended. The one her golf friend owned. Oh my God! I gripped Gavin's hand. What if it wasn't an accident? The test results arrived in a bland manila envelope that might as well have contained dynamite. Gavin had arranged everything. The testing, the rush processing, the legal chain of custody that would hold up in court. You ready? He asked as I held the unopened envelope. Isla played at our feet, finally healthy again, stacking blocks with the concentration of a tiny architect. No, I said, and opened it anyway. The words swam before my eyes. Probability of paternity, 0%. But it was the second page that stopped my heart. Gavin had been thorough. He'd run Isla's DNA against databases, looking for matches, and he'd found one. Dr. Jonas Delaney, I read aloud. Deceased. He was a pediatric surgeon in Portland, Gavin explained gently. Died in a car accident last year. He and his husband had been trying to have a child through surrogacy for years. They used the same fertility clinic you did. My hands shook. How is this possible? Best guess? Sample mix-up, or... He hesitated. Or something more deliberate. The clinic closed 6 months after your treatment. Officially, it was financial troubles. Unofficially, there were rumors about irregularities, payments for specific outcomes. I thought about Viola's convenient recommendation. Her friend who owned the clinic, the way she'd insisted on that specific doctor. They knew, I said. They knew Bryce might not be able to have children, so they made sure I'd get pregnant, just not with his baby. Then they could claim infidelity whenever they wanted me gone. It's speculation, Gavin warned. Hard to prove intent. But I knew. In my bones, I knew. The Delaney family was nothing like I'd expected. Dr. Marcus Delaney, Jonas's widower, met us at a park in Portland. He had kind eyes and hands that shook slightly as he looked at photos of Isla. She has his nose, he said softly. Jonas would have loved her so much. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. I had no idea. Neither did we. Jonas donated years ago when we first started trying. We thought all his samples were destroyed when the clinic closed. He looked at me directly. Miss Monroe, I want you to know. We have no intention of disrupting your life or Isla's. You're her mother, that's clear. But, because there was always a but. But we'd like to know her, if you're willing. Jonas's parents, his sister, they've lost so much. Finding out they have a granddaughter, a niece, he smiled sadly. It's like getting a piece of him back. I thought about family, about what it meant, about Isla growing up with only me, when she could have so much more. Yes, I said. Yes, of course. What followed was a whirlwind of legal documentation. The Delaneys didn't just accept Isla, they embraced her. And me. Jonas's mother, Patricia, was a retired judge who took one look at my situation and said, "This ends now." "You were defrauded," she said, reviewing the documents. "That clinic, those consent forms, none of it was legitimate, and the Holloways capitalizing on it?" Her expression turned steely. "I've seen their type before. They're about to learn what happens when they mess with my granddaughter's mother." The Delaneys had something the Holloways hadn't counted on: legitimate power, connections, and absolutely nothing to lose. "We're filing for declaratory judgment," Patricia explained, establishing Ayla's parentage officially, making it clear that any claims the Holloways have are fraudulent. "They'll fight," I warned. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Let them try." The video surfaced on a Tuesday. Gavin played it for me on his laptop, his face grim. It was security footage from the Holloways library, date stamped 2 weeks before Isla's birth. Bryce, drunk, talking to someone off camera. "Once the baby's here, we wait a few months," he slurred. "Then spring the trap. Elena goes away thinking she's protecting the kid. We get the baby, claim abandonment. Mother's too ashamed to fight back. Clean break." "And if she does fight?" The voice was Viola's. "Please, a disgraced woman who signed away her rights? No court would side with her." I watched myself die on that screen. The woman who'd loved him, believed in him, built a life with him. She crumbled to ash with each word. "How?" I asked Gavin. "Their security company stores everything in the cloud. Terrible encryption." He managed a small smile. "Technically illegal for me to access. Technically. We can't use it in court." "No, but we can make sure the right people see it, anonymously." The video went viral in Denver social circles within hours. The Holloways' carefully cultivated image imploded. News outlets picked it up. Prominent family accused of fraud ran alongside photos of charity galas and ribbon cuttings. Then the investigation started. IRS, FBI, state attorney's office. Turns out, when you're laundering money through fake charities, public scrutiny is bad for business. The lawsuit, when I filed it, was almost anticlimactic. Patricia Delaney had assembled a legal team that made the Holloways lawyers look like first-year law students. Fraud, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conspiracy. "They'll settle," Patricia predicted. "They can't afford a trial now." She was right. The number they offered was staggering, enough to ensure Isla would never want for anything, enough to rebuild a life. But it was the custody order that mattered. Full, permanent, uncontestable custody to me. Isla was mine in every way that mattered. The morning the news broke about Viola's arrest, I was making pancakes. Isla sat in her high chair, babbling about puppies and airplanes. My phone buzzed with messages, but I ignored them. "Mama, look!" Isla pointed at the window, where a cardinal perched on the sill. "I see it, baby. Beautiful." Gavin arrived an hour later with groceries and news. Bryce's company dropped him. Turns out investors don't like executives under federal investigation. I waited to feel something. Satisfaction, vindication, joy. But all I felt was tired. "It's over," I said. "The legal stuff, yeah." He unpacked vegetables, moving around my kitchen with easy familiarity. "The rest? That's just beginning." He was right. The Delaneys wanted us to move to Portland, be closer. Ruth had offered me a partnership in the lodge. And Gavin? Gavin was here, making lunch. Like it was normal. Like we were normal. "I'm thinking about writing again," I said. "Real writing, not just ad copy." "Yeah? What about?" "This, all of it. Maybe it'll help someone else." He smiled. "I think Jonas would have liked that. His husband says he was always fighting for underdogs." My daughter's father. A man I'd never met but whose legacy lived in her laugh, her stubborn chin, her gentle heart. That night I sat at my laptop and typed, "They called me the problem," until the truth got louder. 2 years later, I stood on a stage in Seattle, looking out at 300 faces. The TEDx talk had been Gavin's idea, but the words were all mine. Shame is a powerful weapon, I said into the microphone. It keeps us quiet, makes us small, convinces us we deserve whatever hell we're living in. In the audience, I spotted familiar faces. Ruth, who'd flown in just for this. Patricia Delaney, proud as any grandmother. Melody, who'd started her own nonprofit for displaced domestic workers. And in the front row, Gavin holding Isla on his lap. She wore her favorite dinosaur dress and light-up sneakers that she'd insisted on despite my protests about appropriateness. But here's what shame can't survive, I continued. Truth, community, and the revolutionary act of refusing to disappear. The talk was supposed to be about surviving domestic fraud, about rebuilding after gaslighting. But really, it was a love letter to the women who'd believed me, the family who'd claimed us, the man who'd stayed. After, at the reception, people approached with their own stories. Women who'd been discarded, men who'd been silenced. All of us carrying scars that looked different but ached the same. You should write a book, an editor said, pressing her card into my hand. Maybe, I said, but I was already thinking bigger. A podcast, a foundation, something real and lasting. Gavin found me on the balcony later, Isla asleep in his arms. Seattle sparkled below us, all lights and possibility. So, he said, I've been thinking. Dangerous. Smartass. He shifted Isla gently. Move in with me, officially, both of you. We'd been dancing around it for months. His apartment was already half ours. Isla's toys in every corner, my coffee in his kitchen, our lives intertwined but not quite joined. That's not very romantic, I teased. You want romance? He carefully transferred Isla to my arms, then dropped to one knee right there on the balcony. Elena Monroe, you brilliant, stubborn, incredible woman. You and Isla have made my life complete in ways I didn't know were empty. Marry me. Let me be Isla's dad officially. Let me love you both forever. The ring was simple, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, nothing like the ostentatious rock Bryce had presented like a business transaction. You know I'm complicated, I said. I'm counting on it. And Isla's a handful. My favorite handful. And I snore. Elena. He was laughing now. Is that a yes? I looked at my daughter, sleeping peacefully. At this man who'd chosen us, fought for us, stayed through every messy moment. Yes, I said. God, yes. He kissed me then, careful not to wake Isla, and I tasted hope. Real, solid, tangible hope. Later, at home, our home, I tucked Isla into bed. She mumbled something about unicorns and pancakes, then settled into sleep. I watched her breathe, still sometimes unable to believe we'd made it. My phone buzzed. An email from a woman in Texas who'd seen the talk online. Your story gave me courage to leave, she wrote. Thank you for being loud. I thought about noise, about silence, about the space between where truth lives. In the living room, Gavin was setting up his laptop. Movie? He asked. In a minute. I pulled out my own laptop and opened a new document. The cursor blinked, waiting. Chapter 1, I typed. The first time someone calls you crazy, you defend yourself. The second time, you doubt yourself. The third time, you start to believe it. What are you writing? Gavin asked, settling beside me. Our story. All of it. Even the ugly parts? Especially those. I looked at him. Someone needs to hear it. Someone's in their bathroom right now, crying on the floor, thinking they're alone. He kissed my temple. Then tell it. All of it. I'll make coffee. As he headed to the kitchen, I kept typing. About snow and hospitals and accusation. About buses and diners and surviving. About love that arrives when you're not looking, and families that form in unexpected ways. About rising from ashes you didn't choose to become. The words flowed like water, like tears, like hope. And somewhere in Portland, the Delaneys slept peacefully. Somewhere in Denver, the Holloways faced their consequences. Somewhere in Maple Hollow, Ruth kept a light on for other women running. And here in Seattle, in an apartment full of toys and love and second chances, I wrote our truth into existence, word by word, page by page. Isla would grow up knowing her story, all of it. the beautiful and the brutal. She'd know her biological father was a good man who'd never met her but whose family loved her fiercely. She'd know her dad, Gavin, chose her, fought for her, loved her by choice rather than blood. And she'd know her mother had been broken but refused to stay that way. They called me the problem, I typed, until the truth got louder than their lies. Outside, dawn crept over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of possibility. Inside, my family slept, safe and whole. And I wrote,
If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never let anyone convince you that silence is your only option. Speak up. Fight back. And when they try to break you, remember, your strength is louder than their lies. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it today.